Koreatown, including the...
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to hear your most issue about the gun control, and yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So we like to hear that your policy, your commitment, and what is now progress is in the...
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I'll talk a little bit about it and why I did it. And if you take a look at the district that I represent, that stretches from Koreatown, Pico Union, MacArthur Park, downtown Los Angeles, Bow Heights, as you know, Huntington Park, Vernon, Little Tokyo, and a couple of other small communities. Gun violence has been on the rise not only here in our district, but across the nation. And so when we took a look at what can we do to prevent senseless gun violence, we looked towards two things. Number one, limiting the amount of long guns that anybody can purchase at one time. In the state of California, you can purchase one handgun only per month, but the law was silent on long guns, and so you can purchase as many long guns as you want. Now, this is dangerous because nobody needs hundreds of guns, and I'm not talking about sportsmen, I'm not talking about people who do this for a sport, but the average citizen shouldn't be able to go in and buy hundreds of guns at one time with no accountability. And so we wanted to limit that, and when we took a look at the AG's office, there was a situation in 2014 in April where somebody walked in and bought 170 something of these long guns. But the problem for me is that they end up in our neighborhoods, in our streets, and this is where we see some of the violence from long guns. But the second one, and the governor did sign, was that we wanted to close a very dangerous loophole on gun ownership, gun possession without a background check. Now, this is really important because if you and I, anybody here in this room, as law-abiding citizens go in to buy a gun, we're required to have a background check. But if you loan me the gun, I don't have to have a background check. So it's a loophole in the law that allowed me to get a gun from you without a background check, but forced you to purchase, but when you purchased the gun, to have a background check. And so we wanted to make sure that there was parity in the law, so that if you loaned a gun to somebody, I loaned a gun to somebody, that person would have to have a background check. So we felt very strongly about that, and the governor signed it. We also fought really hard this particular year in my community, in particularly, meaning the 53rd district, on the issue of homelessness. At the state level, we were able to access a little over $3.6 billion worth of dollars. The largest chunk of it came in $2 billion in an initiative called No Place Like Home. This was repurposed Prop 63 dollars that the legislature pushed through, and particularly because if you take a look at the district that I represent, on Skid Row alone, there are 7,800 people who live on the streets. If you take a look at even in Koreatown, Pico Union, MacArthur Park, Bow Heights, you combine that, you're starting to see about anywhere between 8,000 to 10,000 people who live on the streets. Los Angeles County, 48,000 is the number, and in the city of Los Angeles, it's 25,000 people, so we wanted to do something about that. Senator Mitchell and I also pushed legislation through that would require the state to prioritize a housing first model as it relates to addressing the issue of homelessness. This is really important because if you are going to give somebody the substance control treatment and or the mental health care control treatments, and you don't have a place for them to live, they're going to end back up doing the same thing if you put them back on the street. So what we decided to do is the housing first model. Means you got to give somebody housing as part of the wraparound support services. We actually asked also the governor when I authored HR 56 to declare an emergency on the state of homelessness. We weren't successful, but we did get his attention and had him sign a significant numbers of bills as it relates to addressing the issue of homelessness. We also included in the state budget, which I pushed a bill and then negotiated into the state budget, the ability to give people 30 days of housing assistance so that they wouldn't land on the streets, and that's per year. This is really important, particularly because if you take a look at the issue of homelessness, you have to address the issue of homelessness when people are on the streets, but you also have to prevent the amount of people who become homeless and which and by far is now becoming families and single mother with kids. And so we wanted to make sure that we gave a safety net to people who couldn't afford it, and quite frankly, seniors too. And that affects Koreatown as well, because if you're a senior and you can't make your rent, we don't want you on the street. We want you to at least have 1 month of homeless housing assistance, and then you can get back up on your feet, hopefully. We also included in the income tax returns a checkoff box that will allow taxpayers to donate monies to a pot that the state will now collect. This is really important because there are a significant amount of school children here in our neighborhoods who attend local schools that are homeless. They don't have basic school supplies, dentist utilities like like a toothbrush, like toothpaste, like dental floss, and we wanted the state to start capturing some dollars that people donate so that we can actually start giving basic supplies to school children. We're talking about basic toothpaste and toothbrushes, which is very basic to you and I, but there's lots of kids who show up every day to school without having brushed their teeth, and they're homeless. So which is why we pushed on that. We also worked on the issue of affordable housing. We were in negotiations earlier this year with the governor on the $400 million worth of tax credits for affordable housing. Didn't complete it this year, but we'll complete it next year. And we carry two bills that we believe will help impact the affordable housing stock. One of them is on commercial property at the bottom, and density bonus model at the top, so that you can do 30% affordable housing when a lot of this development starts coming up. Because oftentimes it's market rate, but very little to none in terms of affordable housing that we thought was very important for this particular population. Look, we've worked really hard to try to improve our district. One of our biggest wins is in the area of environmental justice. This is really important. In Vernon, we have a site called X-Site. It's a battery recycling plant. For 33 years, it had high levels of lead pollution in our communities. When I first got into office, it was one of the issues that we wanted to take on, and we wanted to make sure we were successful in addressing. In negotiations, in about a year and 3 months of me being in office, we were able to get $176 million to address the issue affecting that particular community, the community of Bow Heights and the community of Huntington Park for 33 years. We'll be able now to clean up the lead contamination within that area. This is a huge win for us. We also did it ensuring that the local jobs would first go to the residents of that area. We also did it in a way that there would be local contracting for people who had small businesses in the area, and there would be accountability to the legislature. We feel pretty good about that for in the last 2 years. We tackled the issue of human trafficking. This is a big issue that plagues a lot of our communities. Los Angeles is a hub to this, as is San Diego, as is San Francisco, Fresno, and Sacramento, I believe. We did two things. We included in the state budget $10 million for the wraparound support services for victims that are emancipated. And we believe that organizations like CAST, that's here in Koreatown, will benefit from that. But we also wanted to make sure we came down on the Johns who are doing this to children. And so we made it now possible to be able to do witness testifying via video closed circuit. This is really important because if you're a young person who's emancipated from this at the age of, let's say, 12, 13, or 15, you don't make a good witness because you're traumatized, probably you're scared, and for one reason, or you're threatened, and you won't show up to the courtrooms. And if you do show up, they witness very different than you and I based on all the trauma that we've gone through. So what we were able to get the governor to sign was a bill that said if you're the age of 15 or under, you can do a video circuit not in the courtroom. So that way they can still become a witness. Because right now, if you're scared, you don't show up to be a witness.
No.
So you can't prosecute. So when we talk to law enforcement, the DA's, the AG's office, one of the troubling things is they weren't witnesses to prosecute. So this will allow witnesses, and you'll see a much stronger prosecution rate as it relates to this particular issue. So we feel pretty good about the work that we've done. Worked on the issue of childcare. ensuring that families, now we were not successful, but next year we're coming back to ensure that families have 12 months of childcare if you qualify, uninterrupted childcare. We worked really hard and pushed a conversation in the state legislature to get community college free for those who have need. I pushed those who have need because those who have need are the ones who actually really need it. We also pushed for the implementation of the middle class scholarship. So those going for four-year universities who are in middle class will get 40% reduction on their income tax returns if they have children going through college. Look, we've done a lot of good work, and look, we're gonna continue to engage every part of our district, and I really meant it. We spent a significant amount of time collaborating and participating with organizations in Koreatown. We even held round tables with community and business leaders to ensure that we heard their issues and we can address some of their issues. Held a lot of senior scam stoppers because we understand there's a good percentage of members in Koreatown who are seniors, and so we held a lot of senior scam stoppers. This was aimed at ensuring that our senior populations, particularly in Koreatown, weren't taken advantage of by somebody committing fraud. Either somebody knocking on their door telling them they had to pay a bill, and look, there's a lot of language issues sometimes when it comes to seniors both in Latino, Korean, and Japanese community, and we did not want them taken advantage of. So we spent a lot of time doing senior scam stoppers to ensure that they weren't taken advantage of. And this is something really simple. I mean, somebody can knock on their door and say, the city wants you to pay up for this or that. And if you have a language barrier, and it happens in my Latino community quite a bit, you're scared and you might pay. Or somebody says, hey, we want to fix your air conditioning. They come in and they send them a bill, and then you're in collections. We wanted to make sure that they understood if there's any question on any debt that was trying to be collected from a senior, or anything that they thought was suspicious, that they had an office to call. We gave them all the resources from the DA's office to the different state agencies, and if they couldn't get a hold of anybody, they would contact our office, and we would ensure that a state agency or somebody was communicating with them to verify that they actually owned. Because this is a growing problem, particularly in Koreatown. So thank you for the invitation. We've had a busy 2 years.
Yeah. You very.
But a fun 2 years.
Yeah, good explanation for us. We have so many senior people in the Koreatown that sometimes for less area, they need more for the less area for the talk to the people. So some like that. What's that? How called the 양롱 같은 거? The daycare. The daycare.
Like a community space?
Yeah, they for the daycare. So we need more the daycare thing. So do you have any idea for the more build up Koreatown?
Well, the city has the primary jurisdiction over land use and what is developed. What we could do at the state, and we've been successful at pushing though, is the monies to be able to fund some of the programs. Like for example, not your question, but specifically to daycare. You know, we pushed for an increase in reimbursement funding for daycare, which would provide better services for our senior population. The other thing that we're doing right now, and we included in the state budget conversations this year, the ability for us to come back next year and try to take a look at what the payment structures are for these centers. This was given to us by an organization in HP that showed us different reimbursement rates for Southern California that there are for Northern California. What the administration agreed with us is to take a look at what the reimbursement rates are and see if they need some adapting too. And this is really important because you find out if there are better services in other areas based on more reimbursement. But as it relates to community centers or parks where seniors or other people can have spaces to live, look, I think we're committed in trying to find a state solution to that, or partnering up with the county or the city to ensure. But we have to have the space available that the county or the city can provide for us before we actually got the funding, because where would it go? And but I think there's plenty of opportunities if we think about libraries in a different way. I mean, libraries are a great place to use. Parks, that have community centers in the back where we can able to provide some of the funding for it. But certainly this is something we'll be looking at over the next couple of years and creating partnerships with the city and county.
As you know, the next year, the 2017, April 29th, this is we and we are Korean American community will celebrate and we memory that the 25 years anniversary the LA riots. So we Korean community has the plan to some kind of campaign and some kind of harmonized campaign the each diversity in this area. So no more in the riot. So we like to more in the relationship with Latino community and also African American community so we like the combine the community to prepare that kind of campaign for the next the 100 years. We like to hear your idea or some kind of...
Absolutely. Well, look, there's no doubt that the Korean community is a powerful force now in Los Angeles and statewide. I mean, whether you take a look at its economic power, its voting bloc, and I think, like the Latino community decades ago, was the kind of silent giant in the room when it came to voting and economic power. Certainly, Koreans are stepped up to it. I think there's still a lot of work to be done when it comes to partnerships. Look, I think what's important really in a lot of cases is role models, and we're going to talk about it at different levels, right? There's your political growth, there's your economic empowerment, and then there's what you do at a very basic level. And I think it's really important, like for example, for me to participate more or find other role models who are Latino to participate in young Koreans communities, because this shows us that we can build a relationship with a population that's gonna learn how to be diverse around itself. And likewise, I think for Korean leaders like yourselves to spend time in Latino elementary schools and be able to participate, because not only is it important that young Latino males and females see role models like themselves, and Obama talks about this a lot, right? But I think it's the ability for both you and I to participate together at a Korean school or a Latino school that shows that we have a relationship. This is normal. We don't, we've got to grow up together. We've got to do stuff together. We've got to collaborate. I think it starts at a very basic level. I also think when it comes to economic opportunities, that we've got to do a better job, and I'm happy to participate to try to bring Latino business community members to sit down with Korean business community members and find out where there's integration possible, and particularly at a local level, right? Because particularly at a local level, there may be needs in Bow Heights or in downtown or Pico Union, MacArthur Park, where there's a local business in Koreatown that's able to help or service that a lot better than if they were to go further away. I think those kind of networking is incredibly important to me, or from the African American community as well. I think there's a lot of regional programming that we can do, and probably one way to do it is try to bring together some of the local chambers. Like if I can go get the Bow Heights Chamber of Commerce to work together with the Korean American business community, or if I can go get the African American Chamber of Commerce to work together with some of the businesses in the area, I think we're going to see some regional economic activity too. And I think we got to do it too. When I was on the community college board, what we did at one point in time is take a look at the way we did procurement. And that means who we provided business opportunities to. And when we began to diversify all our operational services, all our CPA services, all our attorney services, we forced our executives to go out and make sure that they reached out to the Pacific Islander community to ensure that they also had an opportunity to bid. But we also made them do the African American community, Latino community. The reason I say that is because as a government representative, I can do these things at a local level, but I have to start working towards figuring out how a state agency also provides opportunities. how state agencies or otherwise hires people to come from our neighborhoods, and that's going to be really critical. That's why I said during the X-site, if that area was affected, I wanted people from that area to have the first dibs at jobs. But I think in the future, we're going to start figuring out how to marry opportunities to this particular area. But look, count me in. I think David Ryu and I have a great relationship. I think we can pull in African American leadership and start talking about a regional approach to the area.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very clear now. I have so many questions about you. Everything is clear.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, we were working on this. The regional approach is something that I thought about long term. Because if you think about it, I mean, there's a lot of services and benefits and expertise in your community, like our community, and you know, we've got some of the largest consumer blocks too. You know, the potential to do stuff. But I really feel strongly about the little kids. I really do, because that's really where it starts. You know, if I don't teach my community that the Korean community is an important part of our neighborhood and how to work with the Korean community and respect them, it's not going to happen somewhere else.
I find you're supporting the Korean people. So many, almost Korean supporting to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many.
Yeah. Well, no, we've spent a lot of time in Koreatown. I got to tell you, I spend a lot of time. I take every opportunity